Here with two-time Busch Series champion Randy LaJoie. Randy, you're here for Racers Expo. What are your thoughts on the event so far?
You know, Bobby has done a good job bringing this event up here. The industry needs a trade show up here. It always had the Big E, a Racerama, and then when that went away,
I don't know.
Bobby heard from a lot of his racing people that there's room for another show in New England, and I've been behind him since he started it, and I thought every year it's got bigger and bigger. So we're probably we have outgrown this facility. I know there's one next door here, so we might be moving into that one for next year and make it a little better show yet.
Excellent. I see you have the banner for the Diamond Series. What's the new product for 2011?
That's my new product. It's a seat that I got to compete with $700 seats, $750 seats, and I couldn't compete with a $1,600 seat, so I've had to redo some of my thinking and say super strong is expensive. Would I put my kids in a $600 seat? No. Would I put my kids in a Diamond? You know, I mean, it's a nice seat, and I'm hoping to get more people to spend a couple $100 more instead of doubling. So that's why I'm calling it the Diamond, and trying to go after the women, because women love diamonds.
And what are your plans for your son's racing this year?
We're going to try to do the K&N Series again. We're going to go one at a time. My dad helps. He's in the scrapyard business, so he helps a little bit, and we'll go to one. If we have a good one, we'll go to the next one.
And how's Don doing these days? Of course,
my dad's he's got 4 scrap yards. He's as busy as he ever was, and you know he's still my ace of spades, that's for sure.
Danbury Raceway, that place, of course, close to home back in the day, and you had such a great year to end Danbury's reign with the sportsman class.
Yeah,
and your
which
dad
started the SK division. Yeah, I mean, Danbury was well ahead of its time. On one hand, if it was still open, I probably would have never left. So, it forced me to go to Stafford and New London. The NASCAR North Tour came to New London. Dickie Williams, the promoter, put me in a NASCAR North car. I fell in love with full-fended cars. And it's done me okay. I've done okay with full-fended cars. I moved down south 23 years ago and pursued a dream and won a couple of championships, and now I got a couple of kids doing that. So it's all been good, and I think my best times are on Monday mornings when I get a phone call from a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, and say, hey, my husband, my daughter, my sister had a hell of a wreck, and he's okay, they're okay, they jumped out of the car, thank you. So I don't get to go to victory lanes a whole lot no more. Hopefully my kids will, but I get the same feeling when a parent calls me and says, hey, thank you, and that makes me feel good.
And the NASCAR North Tour, that was a great thing in its time with all the different venues you got to race with, some great names back then.
And the Dragon Brothers, the Canadians, I mean, it worked very very well. The racetracks were wonderful. The life experiences are never ending, and that's something that I'm sad that I don't think my kids are ever going to see what I see, because I raced from Canada to Florida, and it was pretty fun.
When you look at Danbury, with that place to start out, little flat 3rd mile racetrack, I've always looked at it, even though I never got to go there, as kind of a very close-knit family there.
It was a closed club. You had to get voted in, you had to get voted out. I remember my dad in the modified division winning. I mean, it was as close as Bowman Gray Stadium as I've ever seen. Weekly 6,000 to 10,000 people, and the club raced for percentage of the gate. So my dad would win a 25-lap race and walk out here with $6 grand, 10 grand for a 50-lapper. I mean, it was insane. But I mean, it was amazing that there was no outsiders come in, and the place was packed every single week. And just what happened to this whole country, greed set in, and somebody thought it was better to get out of that environment. And that was one of the racetracks that I haven't been on many racetracks in the country that are as good as Danbury, where you can run as fast on the outside as you could on the inside. I mean, that facility, you can pass cars, and it's not like some of these racetracks you go to and everything's follow the leader. That facility, you can pass people. They had a way that the high point guys started in the back, so you had to start in the back. If you were good, you had to race your way to the front. And there were some people, I mean, I've learned a lot from there. Everything I've learned driving-wise, I learned a lot of it from Danbury, good and bad.
You've seen a lot of transitions through your racing career. Transitions where you had home-built cars, to where you start running flatheads at Danbury, to where you start having chassis-built cars from Troyer come in towards the end of Danbury. And we're seeing a change now with the Nationwide Series, where you won 2 championships, where you now have a guaranteed standalone driver to win the championship, and also a completely different kind of race car. What are your thoughts on that big change for NASCAR Series?
You know, anytime you have a safer race car, it's good. You know, I mean, it's too bad that we had to kill the best that NASCAR had before they paid attention. You know, the industry killed 5 guys before Earnhardt died. And then they, you know, once he died, you know, NASCAR says we're not going to let our moneymaker die again, so we're going to protect. And they've done a great job. NASCAR hasn't lost anybody in the top 3 divisions. But then again, we're still hurting short trackers at the home tracks and stuff like that. So with my Safer Racer program, I've been hitting those racetracks. It's a nonprofit. I do a lot of racetracks. I've run over 130 racetracks in 8 years. Trying to keep the short track guys safe. You know, the Nationwide Series, it's not what it was. We're going to lose some identity. That series has lost its identity, and I don't believe race fans care to watch the same people 2 days in a row. That's just a personal opinion, and at the end of the day, I think that's why the ratings might be down and viewership is down, because, you know, I mean, I raced against a lot of Cup guys when they came down to the Busch Series, but I didn't race against all of them. You know, at one given day, I only had to beat 5 or 6 of them. You know, now you have to beat 15, 20 of them. And the 5 or 6 that I raced against had their own equipment, no engineers. You know, they're on an equal keel to us. Now the Cup teams in the Nationwide Series have $10 million budgets, and you just can't compete. And hopefully, I mean, there's a generation of kids 15 to 25 years old.
Nate was so well.
I'm not sure they're ever going to get a chance. And I think that's sad, because there's an opportunity for the Nationwide Series to put some kids in the cars. And really, I think race fans just want to see kids race and see a good race. I don't know. That was my opinion. And is it right or wrong? I know I have a 19-year-old son. I would love to be putting in a Nationwide Series, but I'm not sure he'll ever get there.
Do you think that you had a great thing when you had Late Model Sportsman as a national championship? It got to be a regional touring thing, and maybe it was sort of its golden era when you were racing in it, because you had a good, healthy amount of short tracks where you could transition a local racer into a national series, whether it be at Orange County or South Boston and Myrtle Beach, and now you're stuck running super speedways for most of your schedule, and there's so much of a limitation to get you into that next tier as a racer than it was back then.
Well, I mean, NASCAR, you know, they haven't helped themselves. You know, the Busch Series used to split speedways and short tracks. Well, you know, the car owners, which all started to become the Cup guys, said, well, we don't want to race for 20 grand. We want to race for 100 grand. Well, you can't put enough people in the race for 100 grand in a South Boston or something like that. But then again, it doesn't cost a whole lot to race those facilities. Now you go to a 1.5-mile racetrack, it costs you a lot of money to do that. So now the purses are bigger, the payouts are bigger, but it also costs you more. So I don't know if always bigger is better. And the K&N Series, maybe it might revitalize itself and make that into an up-and-coming series now. But there again, I mean, it's getting, Gibbs called me, wants my son to drive for the Gibbs, and they want $55,000 a race. And I raced the son last year, my son, and we spent about $7,500. And 3 out of the 4 races we outran him. I don't know why you would need $55,000 when I could do it on $7,500.
When you look at your Safer Racer program, you mentioned the vast amount of racetracks you visited. As a racer, as a businessman, do you notice a pattern in the short tracks? You mentioned your short track drivers are still getting hurt, or is there things that you're saying these tracks are running their program a certain way, and they're getting most of it right. Do you see anything in the industry at this point?
Well, at the end of the day, as a driver has to be concerned about what he has in his car as a system. You know, a good seat is not going to save a guy's life if the belts aren't mounted properly. You know, if the belts are right and the seat's no good, the guy's still going to get hurt. If you don't have a head and neck restraint, you know, so the systems in these cars make a big difference. And it's up to the drivers, it's up to the car manufacturers, you know, to put the seat belts, mount the seat belts the way the seat manufacturer wanted his seat to be mounted. Mount the seat the way the seat manufacturer put the seat belts the way the seat belt people want the belts, not the way the manufacturer wants to mount them, the car manufacturer, but put it to where the belt manufacturer wants it. So the industry, I mean, that's what NASCAR has done, is paid a lot of attention to it, is angles and stuff like that the short trackers don't. And either they don't care or they're just not educated. So that's one of the things that I think I've helped the industry a lot, just opening their eyes up and explaining to them. You know, I don't build the seat belts, but I know they're not mounted correctly. You know, and the guy's like, well, why? And I explain it to him, and he's like, oh, okay, I'll fix it. So, you know, it's just getting out there and educating, and that's what the Safer Race is all about.
What's your projection for 2011? People look at fuel prices, people look at attendance, and what do you think 2011 is going to be this season?
Daytona had a great crowd. I heard Phoenix is sold out. You know, fuel prices are crazy. I mean, but I do know racers are going to race. At the end of the day, there's a race car in their garage, and there's a racetrack that's opening up. They're going to load up, and we're going to go race. Might not buy another set of tires. We might be running on empty when we get home, but we will race.